My name is Lawrence Wong. I was born in 1972. Singapore was a young nation with not much to our name. Our population was just over 2 million, and 66% of us were under the age of 30. But that did not stop our pioneers from believing in new possibilities and working hard to improve their lives. My parents were part of this story. My father, he came from Hainan Island as a teenager. He helped his father, my grandfather, who was then working as a chef on the Malayan railways. So my dad studied in Ipoh and came over to Singapore later as a young man looking for a job. My mother, she grew up in Kampong Ember. As a young girl, she was asked to stay home and look after the younger children in the extended family. So no chance to go to school. But she insisted on doing so, and my grandfather eventually relented. She completed her secondary education, and she later became a school teacher. One of my parents' proudest achievements was to be able to own their HDB flat, a brand new home in Marine Parade, at that time newly reclaimed from the sea. It cost them what was then a princely sum of $30,000. I attended Haig Boys Primary School, which was where my mother taught for more than 35 years. In fact, my older brother and nearly all my male cousins studied at the same school. Our education system went through many changes at that time. We had ability-based streaming, with students going on to Primary 7 and Primary 8 so as to reduce dropouts. And I remember my mother used to teach these older students too. It was also a time when Singapore's economy really took off. We grew at an average of nearly 13% a year, and we were one of the 4 Asian tigers. We emphasized the importance of education. But my school life remained relatively carefree. I enjoyed playing games like chapte, hantam bola, and football during recess. When it came to choosing my secondary school, I chose Tanjong Katong Secondary because most of my classmates were going there. I did well enough to obtain a PSC scholarship. Without that, my parents would not have been able to afford my overseas studies. Throughout this period, Singapore progressed at breakneck speed. From a little red dot to a global city. From economic growth to cultural development. From a rugged society to a kinder, gentler place. I remember how Singapore was high with sporting fever. Fandi Ahmad was every boy's hero. Jocelyn Yeo was our golden girl. And in 1997, I started work. I was a research economist at MTI. Like most fresh graduates, I was brimming with confidence, armed to the teeth with all the theories I had learned in school. Then the Asian financial crisis struck, and all these theories turned to dust.
That sent shockwaves through Asian currency markets, which saw
the Singapore economy showed another round of none-too-good figures.
The Thai baht and other regional currencies, they all came under intense speculative attacks. Protests and social unrest erupted, and many governments were toppled. Nothing I learned prepared me for the scale of the disruption. One of my first assignments was to put up a paper to my bosses assessing the impact of the regional crisis on economies around us as well as Singapore. I realized then how big a gap there was between my textbook understanding of economics and the way things work in the real world. This lesson has stayed with me since as I continually try to learn and relearn. As our economy and population matured, we had to relook our planning parameters and review long-standing policies. One significant project I was involved in was the first MediShield reform back in 2004. Today we have MediShield Life, which provides far better protection against large bills, even those with pre-existing conditions. And I saw the benefits for myself some years back when my father suffered a sudden heart attack and had to undergo bypass surgery. The 2000s were a tumultuous period of crises. The dot-com bust, SARS, and the global financial crisis. They crippled our economy, but they did not deter us. We restructured and diversified our economy, and we ensured that Singaporeans continued to get good-paying jobs. I joined politics in 2011. I did so in part because I was fortunate enough to serve Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong as his principal private secretary. I had seen what devotion to country and people meant. He inspired me to consider what more I could do to contribute to the Singapore story. It has been quite a ride since then, taking on different portfolios from culture and community to national development, education, and finance. And during COVID-19, as co-chair of the Multi-Ministry Task Force, I saw firsthand how Singaporeans supported and looked out for one another throughout the crisis. It was this whole of nation coming together that really made the difference. Almost alone in the world, Singaporeans emerged a stronger people from COVID-19 than we were before the crisis. More resilient, more linked, more joined up, and more closely connected. And this is why I launched Forward Singapore last year, to refresh our social compact, build on the strong links that exist in our communities, so as to make this place an ever more fair, just, and equal society. My story, like so many others in Singapore, is a story of possibilities. If you asked me 30 years ago if I had envisaged all this, my answer is no. My father, who died 3 years ago, would certainly have been surprised that a son of someone of his background could become Prime Minister. But it would have vindicated his faith that he had made the right choice coming to Singapore. My life spanned Singapore's stunning, rapid growth and development from third world to first in less than 6 decades. The world today is vastly different from the one I was born into. In 1972, no one talked about climate change. Now, we know it will pose a challenge to our very existence as an island nation. In 1972, there was no personal computer, no smartphone, not even fax machines or pages. Smart machines, thinking machines, they existed only in science fiction. Today, our work, our industries, our societies are all about to be changed, perhaps beyond recognition by AI. In 1972, US President Richard Nixon made his historic visit to China. No one could have predicted then that China would grow so rapidly to become the world's second largest economy. And not only China, now India too. The fraught and complex geopolitical challenges that a small city-state like Singapore will have to navigate today would have been unimaginable in 1972. How do we ride these challenges, take advantage of the opportunities that will arise, and continue to thrive and prosper? These are questions that we will all have to wrestle with. And you know, I cannot do this alone. I need the help of all my colleagues, my fellow citizens, young and old, in every community, in every profession. Each and every one of you. Much as we have accomplished, there is still much more to do. Let us write the next chapter of our Singapore story. Let us take Singapore forward together.